We're doing it.
Really?
I think we're live.
Hey, it'd be great if we were.
I would hope and pray that the microphones are working. I would hope and pray that I don't have to call Stick ever again. I'm going to press a button real quick. Hang on.
Yep.
Let me make sure.
Oh.
I think we're on.
I think so. I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be back.
I know, man. It's episode 1/episode
1A.
Didn't we, when we started this podcast, first of all, I'm Art.
And I'm Mark.
Mark, a.k.a. Big Cat. We started this podcast many moons ago. And before we fully get started, I want to give a big shout-out to Josh McKay, also known as Kid, who made the beat, the intro that you heard.
Sounded good.
I like to have the intro before we get on because then we could share it to the social medias.
Absolutely.
Big shout-out to him. Big shout-out to Austin Bond. You can find him on Instagram, os.10. Which I thought was pretty...
That's clever.
Yeah. He made...
Clever.
Look at the logo!
It looks legit. It's
does.
very good. It's very nice. It's very cool.
We're
what
doing
did I say
things.
earlier? It says we like to party, but we can still hang out with your grandma.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
Yeah. So my name's Art, Big Cat here. Man, I'm excited to have this thing back.
I'm very happy to have this back.
It's something that we started... We'll go way back. I met you when I came to Flint to do radio. Mm-hmm. After leaving South Bend, Indiana, I came to Flint. I met you at a bar called Sharky's in Burton.
Yeah.
Walked in, met you. The first thing, and mutual friend Tony Labrie, he's on the radio in Flint. First thing we started talking about was the Joe Rogan Experience.
That's the first thing we talked about. Podcasts and how we love them. I love them. I listen to a lot of them. And I don't know a lot of the radio world. That's Art's world. Art is very good at broadcasting. He's been radio a long time. And so for him to actually know more of the podcast world, he helped me to get into it because I'm not. I'm in real estate. So he got me into this. We started a podcast, and we had fun with it. But it was a little ghetto. It's not this.
Man.
It was not this. Look at this. Look at this.
When we
got logos, Woodward, everything.
Yeah, when we started this, it was at your place in Flint, like the Flint.
Hood.
Shout out to David Owen, who's listening and watching. If you could hear us, David, which I'm guessing you can, just give us a thumbs up. This is all new. I'm gonna be honest. Make sure that you share it too. But so we met. I had way less tattoos then.
Yep.
You were living in Flint, and we literally just started talking on the phone every single day. Like
basically,
yeah. I would be driving. For the past 3 years, I was working in Lansing, so I would call you on the way home, and we would just bullshit with each other. But before that, we were doing a podcast in the real Flint,
right? In
off of
not so great area, like we're talking Ballinger and Corona, so we're talking the city limits of Flint.
Yeah,
you
can say sketchy. The street, right?
It was sketchy.
You don't want to say the street name, do you?
Oh yeah,
it was Man Avenue.
Man Avenue.
Yeah, I remember the first time that thank you, David, appreciate it. He said it sounds good. Cool. I remember the first time that eases my nerves so much. Like, I thought that we would be sitting here talking to ourselves, and we're not. So, I remember the first time I came over to your house, you said, "Hey, make sure that you lock your doors." And I said, "I'm driving like a Jeep." And you're like, "Make sure that you take everything out and lock the doors." Yeah. I was like, "But it's a Jeep." And you're like, "You're in Flint. And we did the podcast in your basement, and it
sounded good, but the visual was nothing of this.
Yeah,
nothing of this.
It was literally you put up some curtains.
Yeah, you put like soundproofing.
Yeah,
it did sound okay. But I will say with that podcast, I did a lot of the beginning works where I set up the board, I set up a lot of the mics and everything. This time around, I've done nothing. Art has literally done everything. So this podcast being on right now is all because of you.
Well, I appreciate
you did everything.
Man.
I'm just here because I'm the talent.
Oh,
listen. And I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And let's just call a spade a spade.
Yeah, I mean, you're just saying the truth. But here's the deal: is that when we were doing it in Flint, it got to a point to where my other job of working at the radio station, and I think at the time I had triplets on the way, and there was just a lot of stuff going on. So I was like, I have to take a break from it, and it was devastating. I hated it. We had great guests on there.
We did.
The greatest guest of all time we had on twice, and that was Jeff Wilson.
That is.
And rest in peace to Jeff. I mean, this whole reason why I wanted to bring this back was obviously we have a friendship. Me and you talk on the phone for hours, and it's like, well, why not just turn it into a podcast?
One day, you and I were sitting, we were starting to plan this all out, and it really clicked into my head. This friend of ours who had passed away from cancer, tragically, he was a big part of our lives, and we were like, when we do this podcast this time around, we're going to make sure to dedicate every episode to him. We miss him, but he was a great human being.
Oh, yeah.
He was better than me. He was better than you. He gave to charity. He was a man of faith.
He introduced me to, when I came to Flint, we had like a tour to Flint. And I remember I went with Chris Monroe, and Chris Monroe's on Banana 101.5 in Flint. And I remember I got in Chris's car, and he gave me like the first trip to Flint. But we went to like Grand Blanc downtown, and he outdrank me and still drove me home. Mm-hmm. I remember throwing up in his car. Because I had...
Was he mad at you?
No.
Because he's a good guy.
He is a good guy.
He was a good guy.
Yeah. And so Chris, that was the experience with Chris. The first tour to Flint, but we were in like Grand Blanc. The second time was with Jeff. And Jeff and I went to Little Darlings in Flint, iconic spot off of Dorr Highway. That was pretty epic. And then we went to the one right across, Deja Vu.
Yeah.
And it was by the time we got there, it was 3 o'clock in the morning, and we were drinking in his car, not driving. We were drinking in his car, and we went to go get back in, and the owner was like, you can get in just through the back, just don't let anybody else in. I was like, okay. And I was plastered. I was so drunk. And these two girls come up, and they're like, hey, let us in. And Jeff's like, I can't. Only us two are allowed to get in. And she got in his face and was like, I'm from fucking Chicago, this and that. And Jeff's like, I can't let you in. And they're going back and forth. And I didn't know what to do because I saw the one girl go to the car. Mm-hmm. And when you go to the car during a fight, it's either for a gun, a knife, like a bottle. She grabs a fucking pit bull.
Yeah.
And she brought the pit bull out. And I remember before she went, the girl was like, go to the trunk, go to the trunk, go to the car, go to the trunk. And she comes back with the pit bull. And the other girl's in Jeff's face, and they're going back and forth. They're just screaming and yelling. And I remember she grabbed his hat and like put it over his head. And that's when I kind of got in between. I was like, don't do it, don't do it. And I looked at the girl. By then, the other girl had the dog. And I said, don't fucking let go of that dog. Like, don't. I don't have health insurance. I get bit by a pit bull. I'm probably going to die.
She cared? No, she didn't. This is your introduction to Flint.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah,
How much has Flint changed your life? You gained Jeff as a best friend.
Yeah.
You also lost him.
Yeah.
Because we all love him, we all miss him, but you really were close.
Yo, it was your
introduction to Flint.
We had so many crazy experiences. I mean, I remember Jeff and I going to the Flint Farmers Market, and we watched the wrestling matches there.
I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget that day. It was the most backyard wrestling you've ever seen.
Oh, it was bad. It was bad, but it was so good.
It was so bad, it was good.
Jeff knew all the names of the people. He knew everybody there.
What class? So you have your WWF. This was like WWTF 569.
This was all the way down.
Down.
Bottom of the barrel. I mean, but it was so much fun, though. They had like a white trash Undertaker. One of the
wrestlers was who you took your tickets when you walked in the store. It was so bad.
If you've never been to the Flint, not Flint Farmers Market, it's
I don't think that exists.
It's the Dort Mall like flea market.
Right.
But there's everything there. If you need an extension cord, they have one. If you need the Clue video game from 1995, they have it. They have everything. They had wrestling figures, and it was one of Jeff's favorite places to go. But I remember my wife at the time, pregnant with triplets. And we were just sitting there, and I was dying, bro. I never laughed so hard.
Your son with us.
Yeah, when Peter McFray showed up, you were there. Trish was there. I think Tree stopped.
They had the B-side Undertaker came out, and Dylan started crying. Yeah, they brought a casket out.
He was so
And this guy that looked like a Klingon came out, and he scared Dylan, but he came back from the dead.
Yeah. Dylan was like, no. I was like,
freaked out.
I was like, Dylan, you could beat up that guy. But there's nothing better than like white trash wrestling events.
That's what Jeff thought.
Yeah, and Jeff loved wrestling, man.
And comic books?
On this podcast, we had 2 episodes with him, and there was an episode about Titty City. and how he wanted to start what was it? It was a wing spot, but it was also a strip club called Titty City.
Titty City.
And he was going to put it in Traverse City. That's why it was called Titty City.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
I remember it was genius.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And man, I mean, throughout this show, we'll go and we're going to play audio from him. But yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, before his death, I had never really had like a big loss in my life. Like my great grandma passed away, but I wasn't really close with my great grandma because whenever you would cough around her, she'd be like, "Are you sick?" Like she would have been the worst Karen to deal with during this pandemic.
During COVID, yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was like, "Are you sick?" And I was like, "No, I literally sneezed. Don't get so close to me." So, but I never really had anyone that like passed away that I was super close with. And then Jeff, passed away. And I'd never had been a pallbearer either. Or is it a pallbearer where
you carry the casket?
And man, it was a whole
I remember going through that with you and you like trying to explain to you. You almost didn't go, and I'm like, dude,
I had never been to a funeral.
Of your life.
I had never been to a funeral at that point, other than one time I was being babysat, and I was taken to a funeral during being babysat.
That's great.
My dad, he was just like, take him wherever, But before that, I was like, I wasn't terrified to go to funerals, but I just didn't like it. It made me uncomfortable. But now, after going through the experience with Jeff, I would have hated myself forever if I wouldn't have gone.
I made sure you wouldn't have not. I would have drugged you there.
Yeah.
And you went. You got a flat tire. You had a rough day.
Yeah. But it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me. But this podcast is about Jeff. I mean,
that's what we want to do.
Yeah.
Do something good because that's what he did.
You know what's
Jeff
crazy?
He did something good for people all the time. He gave money.
Yeah.
He really did. And that's what we're going to focus this on. We're going to do good for people, have fun. We're bringing this back in COVID because everybody needs it right now.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, so here's what happened. I got this gig at Woodward Sports, and Stick was talking about his friend that had meant so much to him. And then after she passed, like, he had to do this Woodward Sports in her honor. And that's what got me thinking, like, I want to do this with you. So, I mean, when you think about someone as close as a best friend passing, it's the worst thing ever. It sucks. But what came of it was us bringing back this show, dedicating every single episode in Jeff's memory, sharing memories with him. And yeah, I mean, this whole year has been crazy, man. It's been insane. With you were working at the machine shop that got shut down.
Yep, I'm in real estate.
Yeah,
my real estate career was put on hold for a little while. So working, I eventually got back to working in real estate, which was good. So I was able to work and very blessed in that way. But I do try and stay home as much as I can to not spread this, and it's tough. It's tough on everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, you start a new job in the middle of COVID.
Yeah, which is crazy when you think about it. I'm going to move move over just a little bit because that light.
This way?
Yeah, just like that. As long as you're up on the mic, you're good. But that little light's bothering me. So I lost my gig because of COVID. I was working in Lansing, programmed a radio station for a couple years. They decided to flip the format and get rid of me. And so, yeah, lost the gig. It sucks. And for a couple months.
You were in radio for how many years?
At that point, I'd been in radio for 10 years.
Total.
Yeah. So, I mean,
it
was
your life.
Yeah, it was nuts. It was, something that when I lost that gig, I was like, oh, well, there goes radio. Because, I mean.
Let me tell you this. So, when you were in radio, you were very happy and you were very good at it.
Oh, but I was miserable in Lansing. You know that.
Well, it was a format that you weren't passionate about. And I've noticed this. My sister wanted me to tell you this. Since you've got this gig, this is your home. Woodward, they've treated you really well.
Yeah.
You love what you do. You're a completely different person. Not in a bad, I mean, in a good way.
No, I was a miserable asshole before this
really
gig.
Positive right now.
Yeah.
You're really happy. You're doing a fantastic job. And people actually get to see Art knows his stuff when it comes to UFC. You know your stat. You're good at broadcasting.
I'll be honest with you. Like, talking in between Taylor Swift songs is only fun for so long. Like, listen, it was what I had to do to provide for my family. But to be honest with you, I don't listen to Top 40 radio. It's not something that you're passionate about. And I see people that during this pandemic are deciding, like, man, I need to do something different because this is making me miserable. Or, I'm working at this job and I absolutely hate it. And
I'm going to interrupt Art throughout this whole podcast. That's what I do. And this is where I can learn from Art, from broadcasting. Don't drink carbonated fluids because I'm so gassy. He's so gassy. You should have told me. You should have reminded me.